following program is intended for mature audiences.
Welcome to Rudy's Revelation, Sunday, February 21, 2021. I'm Rudy, your host. Today I'll be talking back to the Sunday Talking Heads on CBS Face the Nation, where ex-Deputy National Security Advisor Matt Pottinger faults China for trying to cover up the origins of the coronavirus. Also be checking in on our Sunday morning propaganda at our favorite feel-good feature news programs, CBS Sunday Morning, where senior contributor Ted Koppel sits down with community leaders and healthcare workers to explore the roots of why Black America might be skeptical about getting the vaccine. We'll also be tearing into the Sunday New York Times, showing how the newspaper continually mischaracterizes the facts to mislead the public. Of course, I'll be going over the weekend headlines all in the next 30 minutes. But first, we'll be taking you back to school, giving you some historical context to frame this week's news narratives. The word of the day is asymmetric warfare.
Warfare that is between opposing forces which differ greatly in military power and that typically involves the use of unconventional weapons and tactics.
And asymmetric warfare is known by a couple different names, including unconventional warfare. Fourth-generation warfare is a conflict characterized by a blurring of the lines in between war and politics, combatants, and civilians. The term was first used in 1980 by a team of United States analysts, including paleoconservative William Lind, to describe the warfare's return to a centralized form. In terms of generation modern warfare, the fourth generation signifies the nation's state's loss of their near monopoly on combat forces, returning to a mode of conflict common in pre-modern times. We move on to what is called hybrid warfare. Hybrid warfare is a military strategy which employs political warfare and blends conventional warfare, regular warfare, and cyber warfare with other influences and methods such as fake news, diplomacy, warfare, and foreign electoral intervention. By combining kinetic operations with subversive efforts, the aggressor intends to avoid attribution or retribution. Hybrid warfare can be used to describe the flexible and complex dynamics of the battle space, requiring a highly adaptable and resilient response. Here from Global Security Review, what is hybrid warfare? The term hybrid warfare describes a strategy that employs conventional military force supported by irregular and cyber warfare tactics. Conventional Western concepts of war are incompatible and fundamentally misaligned with the realities of the conflict in the 21st century. The emergence of unipolar post-world Cold War order has resulted in significant paradigm shifts. This change now requires the U.S. and its allies to adopt new legal, psychological, and strategic understanding of warfare and the use of force, particularly by state actors. The term hybrid warfare, military institutions use the term hybrid threat, connotes the use of conventional military force supported by regular and cyber warfare tactics. In practical application, the Russian concept of non-linear conflict is an example of hybrid warfare strategy. But here we see from the Huffington Post, China's non-kinetic at three warfares against America. And this is a column by Peter Navarro. Just as the pen can be mightier than the sword, China's non-kinetic at three warfares may prove to be a far more effective at expanding China's maritime and territorial boundaries than any arsenal of missile or fleet of Chinese aircraft carriers. The three warfares were first officially recognized as an important war-fighting capability by China's Central Military Commission and Communist Party in 2003. They include everything from psychological and legal to media warfare. The goal of China's psychological warfare is to deter, demoralize, or otherwise shock an opponent nation and civilian population and thereby discourage the opponent from fighting back. It's exactly what's going on now. As former White House advisor Stephen Halper starkly revealed in a watershed report to the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment in 2014, it employs diplomatic pressure, rumor, false narrative, and harassment to express displeasure, assert hegemony, and convey threats. Thus, for example, when China imposes an economic boycott or bans Chinese tourism, it hopes to coerce a Japanese populace struggling with economic stagnation and hungry for prosperity into acquiescence to China's territorial demands regarding the Senkaku Islands. So that's how these new non-conventional warfares take place. Strategic Pulse, the changing dynamics of modern warfare. Osama Khurshid, today the world we live in is not what our ancestors had experienced. Conflicts are still out there, but their nature and patterns have changed to a great extent. The post-Cold War world is different, and the role of the international organizations along with international treaties has changed the way international actors engage in conflicts in the contemporary era. Military tools, capabilities, and kinetic means are now only for deterrence between two or more nuclear rivals. They have replaced by non-kinetic means of statecraft such as information, technology, diplomacy, and economics. According to most scholars, fourth-generation warfare techniques are already being employed, and fifth generation is currently in its developing stages. The evolved form of insurgency warfare witnessed during the Vietnam and Afghanistan wars has been labeled 4GW, fourth generation warfare. It is conflict characterized by blurring of the lines between war and politics, soldier and civilian. And we got one more for you to describe irregular and unconventional warfare, this fourth generation warfare, this hybrid warfare. Preventing fourth-generation warfare in America's streets. Mayors must do their jobs and allow police and courts to do theirs. We can avoid civil war in the streets of America. When the Cold War was ending, some historians and social observers predicted that the end, the period of international peace through globalization. A group of U.S. Marine Corps officers and civilian military theorists were thinking about the possibility of wars between non-state actors within nations that would fail absent of the discipline of the Soviet-American competition. They gave the problem of dealing with armed non-state actors as the label of the fourth-generation warfare and saw a future where the U.S. military would be dealing with such non-military actors. So then it goes through how conflict is waged in the late 20th and 21st century, and that's what we're in now. That's why people really don't understand what is happening. We're going to end this segment with a reading recommendation of the week.
Less than 3% of you people read books.
Non-traditional warfare, 21st century threats and responses in paperback. The new defense challenge confronting the United States involves from a range of non-traditional warfare threats that are all different from the large-scale conventional or nuclear threats posed by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Now at the forefront, threats including chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons from secondary states and terrorist groups, along with other ill-defined forms of non-traditional warfare, urban, information, drug terrorists, guerrilla undermine the effectiveness of the modern U.S. military and other government agencies. These non-traditional threats and the potential means to counter them. And it talks about foreign propaganda and all that in this book by William Schilling. So we're going to get into the headlines. The AP, first clone of a U.S. endangered species of ferret. This is from February 20th. From Reuters, Texas weather crisis deepens as Chinese believe that they're on the right path, says foreign ministry. China's foreign ministry said on Friday that seeing the plight of Americans suffering in the severe winter storm that hit the state of Texas this week reinforced a belief among Chinese citizens that their country is on the right path. I don't think so. From the New York Post, Why more men are suffering from infertility than ever before? From February 20th. In an article by Susanna Callahan, sperm counts in the Western countries have dropped by more than 50% since the 1970s. At the same time, men's problems with conceiving are going up, erectile dysfunction is increasing, and testosterone levels are declining by 1% each year. Most of us had known that for some time. Wake up, people.
Wake up! Wake up!
It's from AFP. Google fires another lead AI ethics researcher. Google said Friday that it fired a lead artificial intelligence ethics researcher following controversy last year over the tech giant's dismissal of her black colleague who was an outspoken diversity advocate. Well, this isn't that. This is an AI ethics researcher. Think about it. From Reuters, Taiwan scrambles Air Force again after Chinese exercise in South China Sea. From the 20th also, Taiwan's Air Force scrambled a second straight day on Saturday after a dozen Chinese fighter aircraft and bombers carried out those drills. So it's heating up in the South China Sea. Turn to New York Times. First article. Where will Rush Limbaugh's 15 million listeners go now? No one will have a megaphone like his again, but podcasters, 26-year-old conservatives on Instagram, and Sean Hannity all fill the void. Well, that's exactly true. This is a truthful article. They're afraid of the alternative media, and there are 100 Rush Limbaughs ready to come out. I don't know if one's hitting on all cylinders like I guess Rush did for his generation. I really didn't listen to him, but and I think this is from the business section. So it's a little more... Mr. Limbaugh almost single-handedly created a right-wing mass media universe with its knee-jerk hatred of Democrats. Well, I don't know if it's knee-jerk, mocking nicknames, and own the libs' glee that allowed him to imprint his grievances and goals on the national debate. About 50 million people a week tuned in for his daily 3-hour program. Yeah, there are other people that, are propping up conservatism. Balancing privacy with data sharing for the public good. No, I think this was from the business section, yeah. Socially valuable data can be combined with standards that safeguard individual privacy, an economist says. So in this article by David Deming, he just basically tries to rationalize that, hey, everybody, it's part of being on the internet. You're just going to have to give up some privacy. It's part of the new internet economy. Governments and technology companies are increasingly collecting vast amounts of personal data, prompting new laws and myriad investigations and calls for stricter regulation to protect individual privacy. Yet despite these measures, economics tells us that the society needs more data sharing rather than less. So he goes on to express that we're going to have to give up some privacy. I say no. Hong Kong's move to overhaul broadcaster fans' fears of media crackdown. The broadcaster Radio Television Hong Kong is known for independent reporting, often critical of the government, and that is the mainline CCP government. This is by Vivian Wong from the 19th. The Hong Kong government on Friday called for the city's public broadcaster to be more tightly supervised by government-appointed advisors in what pro-democracy advocates say that is authorities' latest move to limit freedoms of the press. Well, everybody saw this coming, and it's just a surprise. I mean, they already have their sights on Taiwan. It's just a matter of time before it's full control in Hong Kong. They're trying to do it slowly, like nobody will notice. So, next story: China is preparing for another Olympics in Beijing. Like it or not, with the Winter Games less than a year away, a powerful and confident China is promising retaliation if any country boycotts the event over human rights. Why would you do that? I mean, the millions of Uyghurs being held in detention camps? By Stephen Lee Myers. When Beijing staged the Summer Olympics in 2008, many argued or at least hoped that the international attention would improve human rights in China. It didn't. We don't really have to go any further than that. And of course, we end up tearing into the Sunday New York Times with the Sunday Review, which is the op-ed pieces, opinion and editorial. And we're going to look at a few today. The first one is more on Rush Limbaugh's demise, the Rush Limbaugh and the Petrification of the Conservatism by Ross Dudat, an extraordinary career for a man, a long defeat for his ideology. And then, of course, it's bashing. I just wanted to point out that, it's the end of conservatism. Actually, conservatism is having a rebirth, minus the corporatism. The next opinion piece, must we dance on Rush Limbaugh's grave? Speaking ill of the dead needn't mean cackling over their demise. Oh, and so they're saying, there are different degrees to say, the guy's dead and he sucked. But I feel... So all I have to do is read the lead. Not proud of this, a friend wrote to me in a text message mere minutes after the news broke on Wednesday, but feeling really good about Rush Limbaugh dying. It just shows the character of the left. It really does. It's like, we're not hating, we just hate Trump. We don't hate, we're not haters, you're the haters, but we hate Trump. And we're good people, but we speak ill of the dead. I mean, Rush Limbaugh was a force to be reckoned with, so. And then the last opinion piece is what our sperm are telling us. This is what we've known for a long time. Scientists are concerned by following sperm counts and declining egg quality. Endocrine disrupting chemicals may be the problem. Nick Kristof, finally coming around, bro. Endocrine disrupting chemicals may be the problem. Oh my God. Okay, so what did you finally figure this out? We've been talking about this for 20 years. Leading scholar of reproductive health, Shanna Swan, calculated that from 1973 to 2011, the sperm count average in men in Western countries had fallen by 60%. Inevitably, there were headlines about spermageddon and the risk that humans would disappear, but then we moved on to chase other shiny objects, in particular, trying to save the environment from carbon. So we are going to leave you with the Sunday Talking Heads and start off with senior contributor to CBS Sunday Morning, Ted Koppel, where he talks to leaders and community leaders and healthcare workers in the black community to try to figure out why blacks would be, everyone is reluctant. I mean, they say it right here in the piece, why people are reluctant to get this new vaccine. Which is basically still experimental. So let's listen in to Ted Koppel.
They could see me and see I'm okay. I didn't have a reaction. I'm not walking backwards. I'm not speaking in tongues. I'm actually okay. I'm not walking backwards. I'm not speaking in tongues. I'm not walking backwards. I'm not speaking in tongues.
The decision to sign up for a COVID vaccine ultimately comes down to a matter of trust. And for some Americans, that trust isn't there.
5,000 families a month are getting food at the First Mount Calvary Baptist Church.
Tell the Reverend thank. Oh, y'all welcome. No thanks, sir. God bless y'all.
Convincing those same people to get vaccinated against COVID is more complicated. Blame some of that on the trash circulating on the internet.
There's this conspiracy that Bill Gates has helped them to design a microchip that will be implanted in you as a result of the vaccination.
This headline claims to show government health workers, clearly many years ago, injecting southern rural blacks with syphilis. Then the question, still want a corona vaccine? The government didn't inject anyone with syphilis, but what did happen was in some respects even worse.
The Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in African Americans began in the 1930s. It was a study that was done without informed consent of the men, and it was done in a way that watched to observe what would happen to those who already had syphilis and it was untreated to see what the effects would be.
Dr. Reed Tuckson is co-founder of the Black Coalition Against COVID-19, providing facts about the vaccine.
If you care about Tuskegee and it makes you angry as it should, then make sure you know you have a drug that will save you from this disease.
Almost 50 years after it ended, the Tuskegee study remains an issue. What happened to those men?
Unfortunately, two things. Those men died because of the disease and became extremely ill for long, long periods of their life. And number two, because they were not told the disease they had, they spread that disease to the women in their lives.
Was anyone ever punished?
No one was ever punished or held accountable, and that is a stain on America's conscience.
It has also had a lingering impact on the black community's confidence in the medical establishment.
When I talked to our employees, it was everything. I don't know what's in the vaccine. I don't trust it. They developed it too fast. They're trying to make us sterile.
Hey, Pastor.
In addition to his ministry, the Reverend DeWitt runs a nursing home.
How many people among your staff have died?
We've had no COVID infections amongst our staff or our residents, thank God, so we count that as a miracle. Extreme in our measures because we didn't allow anybody in. Our residents didn't go out unless it was an extreme emergency.
But when time came to vaccinate the staff,
Mr. Copwell, I was surprised, even at my nursing home, which has 42 employees, our first vaccination clinic, we only had 11 employees take the vaccine. And then we had to get down to the point where, for the sake of our residents and the type of facility that we are, I'm not sure that I can guarantee your job if you don't take the vaccine.
All but 2 of his employees got the message and the vaccine.
Have you had to fire anybody?
We have not had to fire anybody. There is some discrepancies of whether or not we can mandate the vaccine.
I would say about 30% of the staff were prepared to take the vaccine.
Yvonne was initially reluctant, but she got the vaccine.
They could see me and see I'm okay. I didn't have a reaction. I'm not walking backwards. I'm not speaking in tongues. I'm actually okay. They could see me and see I'm okay. I didn't have a reaction. I'm not walking backwards. I'm not speaking in tongues. I'm actually okay. I'm not walking backwards. I'm not speaking in tongues. I'm not walking backwards. I'm not speaking in tongues.
Did that help?
I think it helped a lot.
Well, not so much. The company even offered incentives, paid time off, bonuses of up to $500, but as of now, just 48% of the staff has been vaccinated.
And that's it. You wonder why people are reluctant to take a vaccine that was rushed through approval. And who knows if it's even going to help you. And it sets up all these other issues, whether or not you're going to have your freedoms unless you take a vaccine. It's ridiculous. So we are going to leave you with ex-Deputy National Security Advisor Matt Pottinger, who faults Trine for trying to cover up the coronavirus.
The Chinese government was not sharing useful data with anyone in the world. The World Health Organization was parroting misinformation about this virus. They were claiming that it is not featuring significant human-to-human spread. They continued for weeks, even months, to claim that there was not a significant amount of asymptomatic spread. So that misled our public health experts. I was able to call doctors on the ground in China in late January, and they were already telling me, look, this thing spreads asymptomatically. Half of the cases or more are asymptomatic. That was a different story from what the Chinese government was telling to Chinese doctors who had firsthand information about this pandemic, and they were very open. They said, yeah, this thing is not going to be like SARS 2003. It's going to be like the 1918 flu pandemic because it's spreading silently. We were a little bit too credulous. We were waiting to be fed information when the nature of that regime meant that we were not going to get that information. They had a strong incentive to mislead their own public and the rest of the world about the nature of this virus.
So the World Health Organization has said that COVID-19 was circulating in Wuhan, China in late 2019. Why didn't U.S. health officials or U.S. intelligence know earlier about this threat?
Well, U.S. intelligence wasn't focused on these kinds of questions. They were relying on the CDC. The problem was the Chinese Communist Party did not turn to their CDC to deal with this crisis. They turned to their military. And our CDC did not have relations established with the Chinese military. So the director of the Chinese CDC, based on public reporting, didn't know either. I mean, the Chinese CDC director did not know that this thing was circulating until the last day of December, which is incredible when you think about that. So it looks like the Chinese CDC to some extent was cut out because the Chinese Communist Party turned to its military to try to cover this thing up, to try to contain it until it was too late.
So the Biden administration and their National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, said he has deep concerns about the World Health Organization's recent report and Chinese interference in it.
The World Health Organization it made all sorts of untruthful or misinformed claims about this virus. So the WHO has a lot to answer for. When it comes to this investigation into the origins, unfortunately, we're seeing a panel that's been sent to China that is deeply conflicted. You have people who were hand-selected by the Chinese government. They had a veto over who could come in.
U.S. intelligence has said COVID, according to wide scientific consensus, was not man-made or genetically modified. You are not in any way alleging that it was, are you?
No, if you weigh the circumstantial evidence, the ledger on the side of an explanation that says that this resulted from some kind of human error, it far outweighs the side of the scale that says this was some natural outbreak. We have very strong reason to believe that the Chinese military was doing secret classified animal experiments in that same laboratory going all the way back to at least 2017. We have good reason to believe that there was an outbreak of flu-like illness among researchers working in the Wuhan Institute of Virology in the fall of 2019, but immediately before the first documented cases came to light.
So what you're referring to is some information that the State Department declassified right before the end of the Trump administration. And It said that you have reason to believe a COVID-like disease was circulating in autumn of 2019 in China. Is there evidence to back up that assessment?
There is, and that was a very carefully crafted statement, carefully crafted so as not to overstate the case that was making. The case it was making was for following up on these important leads.
All right, folks, that's it. We'll see you next week, next Sunday. Rudy's Revelation. Check us out. Twitter and Facebook. See you next week.